Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our executive meeting, 1st of October. Happy October, everybody. And welcome to our meeting at the Luttrell Room here at County Hall. It's only Executive League members present in the room that are taking decisions at this meeting. Others are in attendance, bless you, Chief Executive. Others are in attendance are there to provide advice. There are no planned fire drills today. In the event of a fire alarm, please follow the exit signs and congregate in the car park. If anyone present might need assistance in exiting the building, please let one of the Democratic Services team know. The agenda and papers have been published on the Council's website in advance of the meeting, and the Council recognises the importance of striking the balance between providing opportunities for the lawful expression of views. However, any unacceptable behaviours or actions that cause disruption can lead to our meetings being adjourned. The Council will make a recording of the meeting. It will be published in due course. So today's meeting is hybrid. Executive League members and key officers are physically present here in the Luttrell Room in County Hall in Taunton, but other elected members and officers may physically or remotely join the meeting to speak on specific agenda items or to observe. The meeting is being broadcast, and therefore other members of the public and partners can observe the meeting remotely. If you are online, please only use the chat function for the purposes of this meeting. If you wish to speak, use the hands up function if you are able to. Say your name before speaking, and otherwise keep your microphones and cameras turned off for me, please. It helps with the bandwidth and with the smooth running of the meeting. So moving on to our agenda, first of all, got apologies for absence. Councillor Graham Oakes is poorly today. He did say he would be joining us online. I can't see him yet, but I look forward to him being with us. And Councillor Richard Wilkins, I've just seen a message. He is on the way. I'm sure if it's a highways issue, he would have reported it. As we've got officer apologies from Claire Winter, and I believe Richard Selwyn is depping for her. And if we move on to the minutes of the previous meeting, item 2, you're invited to consider the draft minutes from the meeting held on the 8th of September and approve any alterations. Are there any alterations anyone would like to make? Everyone is delighted with those minutes? Yeah, proposed. Is there a seconder? Seconded. All in favour? All against? Clearly, that is carried and signed. It was a marathon affair from 10 a.m. to 3:30. Hopefully, we will get there. And to welcome Councillor Richard Wilkins into the room. Thank you for making it, and to welcome Councillor Graham Oakes online as well. So we're now there. So we move on to declarations of interest. Am I seeing any declarations of interest from colleagues other than those that are notified as members of city, town and parish councils on their register of members' interests? Nothing there, which moves us on to public question time. Our first public speaker is Janet Windsor. Do we have Jan in the room online? We don't think so. Okay. So the question is quite short. So it's what percentage of affordable housing in Somerset is currently occupied by people who previously lived outside the county? Additionally, does Somerset Council have any formal arrangements with organisations from outside Somerset to allocate affordable housing to non-residents? If so, which organisations are there? And I can believe Councillor Sarah Wakefield is responding. Thank you, Sarah.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for your question about Somerset Council homelessness and housing. To join the housing register in Somerset, the applicant must have a local connection to Somerset. For example, the applicant must have lived in Somerset for at least the last 2 years, or 3 of the last 5 years, or have permanent employment in Somerset of over 16 hours a week, or have a close family member, mother, father, brother, sister, who have lived in Somerset for at least 5 years, and there is frequent contact, commitment, or dependency. Evidence is required in all these cases to join the register. There are a few exemptions. For example, if someone was fleeing domestic violence, they would not be expected to have a local connection, or for armed forces veterans who sit in a separate category. We do not have or compile data regarding all affordable housing in Somerset. Whilst most social housing is let through Home Finder Somerset, not all of it is. We are part of 2 national schemes working closely with the police and probation services, accepting referrals for people who are under the Witness Protection Scheme or under MAPA, which is the Multi-Agency Public Protection Arrangements Protocol. And these are small numbers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and 2 important schemes as well that I'm pleased to see that we nationally take part in. So, yeah, good full answer to that one. And our second public question is from Mike Peace. Mike, are you here? Thank you, Mike.
There we go. Good morning, councillors. My name is Mike Peace. Thank you for taking this time to listen. Somerset was promised that bringing 5 councils together into one would deliver efficiency savings of around 20%. Yet 2.5 years on, this council is heading towards bankruptcy. The auditors, Grant Thornton, have twice warned you that savings are not being made, and in January they issued statutory red card warnings. Despite having that extra year to prepare, you wasted valuable time, and today the crisis is even deeper. Over 9 million has already been spent on consultants for adult social care and another 3 million for HR. Yet basic harmonisation of staff terms and conditions still has not been achieved. You now face 146 million shortfall by 2027, and without change, government commissioners will be sent in to take over. The so-called Inspiring Innovation project is presented as a hybrid strategic partnership, but in reality it looks like outsourcing by another name. Instead of expecting senior managers to deliver, you are spending 20 million on consultants to tell you how to save money. That is not leadership, it is abdication of responsibility. Today, you are even considering creating a modern data and AI council. A government trial of Microsoft Copilot showed no productivity gain, yet you are prepared to experiment with costly technology when Somerset is already in financial emergency. If AI has value, use the tools already available at no extra cost. And then there is Glastonbury, where millions of pounds of regeneration funding are unaccounted for. Somerset Council, as the accountable authority, may face clawback of 2.4 million. This is not just financial mismanagement, it risks reputational damage that will undermine confidence in everything you do. Councillors, you have declared a financial and planning emergency, but after wasted time, wasted money, and repeated warnings ignored, it is clear that we now face a leadership emergency. Somerset's residents deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you for your feedback. And Councillor Theobald Philip to respond.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I'm just asked to correct the point about the Newton expenditure, which was 7 million and not 9. Somerset Council acknowledges the seriousness of the financial challenge we face, and we are committed, and indeed we are responding transparently, urgently, and with ambition. The savings promised through the creation of a single council have not only been delivered, they have been exceeded. The business case envisaged a little over 18 million saving. We've made well in excess of 33 million savings already, and we continue to make savings. Phase 1 of our transformation removed a lot of the duplication across 5 councils and stabilised services. We're now in phase 2, which focuses on a deeper redesign and modernisation to deliver the further savings that are required. The pressures we face are not unique to Somerset. Rising demand for social care, inflation, national funding constraints are all affecting councils across the country. These are structural issues that require transformation, not just cuts. That is why we're launching the Inspiring Innovation Transformation Plan. It's not outsourcing, it's a strategic partnership designed to accelerate delivery, bring in specialist expertise, and build internal capacity for the long run. The 20 million investment is spread over several years and is essential to avoid deeper cuts and damage to services and the risk of government intervention. The partnership with Newton Consultant is focused on co-design, diagnostics, capability building, and not handing over control. Regarding the Modern Data and AI Council, this is not unchecked spending. It is a cross-organisational initiative to build internal capacity for data-driven service transformation. The business case includes a clear governance structure, sustainability measures, and a phased approach, starting with homelessness as a use case. This builds on earlier phase 1 transformation work, such as the Transform Family View in children's services, which successfully brought together internal and external partners to share data securely and to improve outcomes. The same platform architecture is now being extended to other service areas, including to ensure continuity, stability, and value for money. We are working with Microsoft to monitor environmental impact and carbon cost, and recruitment is being carefully planned with HR. Somerset Council is not in denial about the scale of the challenges that we face, but we're not standing still. We have a clear plan, strong governance, and determination to deliver the transformation needed to protect the services for the people and communities of Somerset and to secure financial sustainability. On the matter of the Glastonbury Town deal funding, the Council is in discussion with relevant partners and government, and further reports are due to be considered later in the year. There is also an ongoing police inquiry into this matter.
Thank you very much for the answer and for the question. Liz, did you want to add on the Glastonbury Town deal?
If I may, please, Chair, I'd just like to say that this move from Southwest Audit Partnership, who of course are still working towards establishing exactly what has happened, but that moved to the police in early June of this year. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, I think it's
the site. To date, the purchaser has not yet been able to provide tangible evidence of funding to complete the sale. The council remains committed to ensuring that public land is used responsibly and in a way that delivers long-term value for the community. Mayday's innovative proposal and delivery model seeks to recycle profit back into the development and was seen as a unique opportunity for the redevelopment of the site. The offer still represents best consideration for the council, its taxpayers, and the residents of Frome. And because of this, we continued to support Mayday in the hope and anticipation that the sale can be completed. We're working to balance the need for timely delivery with the importance of getting this project right. The council is also considering an alternative funding proposal from Mayday alongside the original put forward last year. However, in addition to the above, officers have a contingency plan to remarket the site for sale should the sale fall through. Any alternative proposals, whether from Mayday or a council decision to pursue a different route to disposal, would need to come back to executive for approval. The executive shares the frustration at the continued delay in completing this sale. We appreciate the community's patience and passion for this site, and we remain committed to facilitating a scheme that Frome can be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you for that response, Councillor Rigby. And just to reiterate that executive decision will be taken in Frome along with the last two. We didn't expect it to be a trilogy, but that is the situation we find ourselves in, and we will continue to develop that hugely important site in the centre of Frome, but it's important to get it right. Councillor Diogo Rodriguez. Morning, Diogo.
Morning, Chairman. So thank you for the time. I'm asking you to really level with the Somerset residents. Since the year you declared a financial emergency, we know you've spent at least £33 million on agency staff. We know you've recently agreed to spend up to £20 million for someone to tell you how to balance your books. And we know those books are loaded with debt from Libden district councils. But can you now set out, please, for us, for the assets you've sold since vesting day, the capital receipts achieved, the borrowing originally taken out and still outstanding, the annual interest cost and the net revenue income this council has lost as a result of those sales?
Councillor Liz Lishon to respond.
Thank you. And I will respond to the questions that were submitted in writing before this meeting. So your first question about which assets have been sold and the capital receipts achieved. So my response refers only to the commercial investment asset sales, which are the bulk of the disposal value thus far. The executive, as you know, at its meeting on the 8th of November 2023, approved a strategy for the disposal of the commercial investment portfolio. Since the 1st of April 2024, 21 properties have been sold for a total capital receipt of £98.61 million. Individual receipts are clearly identified in the confidential papers of the Property and Investments Executive Subcommittee, to which you, as all members, have access in person or on Teams. Your second question about the level of borrowing that was originally undertaken and on the purchase of the asset. So again, all the purchase figures for the commercial investments of the 4 former district councils are included in the confidential papers at that executive subcommittee. As we know, local authority borrowing is not specific to individual assets and is dependent on day-to-day needs. And as you will recall, Somerset Council's level of borrowing was reduced at the end of the last financial year. Your third question is about the annual interest rate costs associated with the borrowing, and so I refer you to my answer on the above question on local authority borrowing, which is very different to that of the household borrowing with which most of us are more familiar. So please note that as well as the interest rates increasing considerably since the fiscal event of Liz Truss's premiership, if anyone can remember that, we are also apportioning minimum revenue provision as required. And there's a question on net revenue income that has been lost to the council as a result of each disposal. So the reducing income from the inherited commercial investments that have been sold or are to be sold has been identified in the medium-term financial plan over 3 years. Detailed figures are also included in the confidential papers at the Property and Investments Subcommittee. And I'm very pleased to say that the leader agreed that members could join that subcommittee online so that they didn't have to travel into Taunton to attend in person. And we simply ask that all those members identify that they are in a room on their own by turning on their camera and stating that. I welcome that as a more accessible way of attending that subcommittee for all members. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you for the response, Liz. And moving on to Councillor Lucy Triminal. Good morning, Lucy.
Good morning. So my question relates to the consultation on the town centre master plan for Yeovil. As a Conservative, I believe our high streets are essential to both our local economy and the well-being of the residents we represent. Yeovil Town Centre is the largest shopping area in the south and east of the county and also attracts visitors from neighbouring parts of Wiltshire and Dorset. For those living outside the town, public transport is patchy and leaves people reliant on car travel to get into town. We want people to go to town and spend their money. Even people living in Yeovil will want to take a car to carry their purchases home. With this in mind, the proposal to remove 4 key car parks, those which are closest to the shops, will be a terrible blow to the businesses in the high street and for the people who rely on cars to access the shops in this already struggling town centre. It should be added that each of the homes that is built on these sites will have just 1 allocated car parking space, meaning 2 adults sharing a flat will only be able to park 1 car near their home. This is impractical. As much as some might wish cars away, even in some of our well-connected cities of the country, cars are still necessary to get from one place to another, and not having access to one can be incredibly restrictive. I believe from conversations I've had with people in the town, people in the areas where I live and represent, and seeing comments on Facebook, the feedback received from this consultation will reflect the concerns that I've voiced in this question. I would like to know what action will be taken should the feedback on this consultation show strong feelings against. Will Somerset Council withdraw these plans and consider other options for house building? For example, working with other landowners in the town centre area to bring their sites forward for development and protect vital and essential car parking to safeguard the future of Yeovil Town Centre.
Thank you for the question, Lucy. I think there may have been some misunderstanding here. Mike Rigby, are you going to respond?
I am, Chair. Thank you. We need to be very clear that there are no proposals from the council as you describe. The Yeovil Town Centre Master Plan is being developed by the council to guide development and facilitate the regeneration of the town centre, including the development of key sites such as Glover's Walk. As such, it is an important tool in our work to enable the future vitality of Yeovil's town centre. The master plan is very much a draft at this stage, and we are keen to hear the views of local people, businesses and community stakeholders. With this in mind, we are currently running a consultation process that runs until the 2nd of November. In addition to inviting consultation responses, officers attended the recent Super Saturday event organised by Yeovil Town Council to seek further feedback from local people. Following the consultation, the council will evaluate all feedback submitted, and with this review, whether changes should be recommended to the proposals in the draft master plan. As part of this, comments about parking provision will be reviewed. Subsequently, final proposals for the master plan will be set out in a report to the council's Planning and Transport Policy Executive Subcommittee, along with a summary of consultation feedback. It would be entirely wrong to rule out any options before consultation and without proper consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby. I hope that's cleared up any misunderstanding on that. Okay, we move to the executive forward plan. Are there any issues that people want to highlight on that? No. And so we move on to item 7, which is Modern Data and AI Council. Councillor Theo Butt-Philip to introduce.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm pleased to be able to introduce the Modern Data and AI Council decision paper today. This is an incredibly important decision for the future of Somerset Council. As financial pressures and demand increase, we need to make public expectations and deliver responsive services with a focus on prevention and a joined up approach for the benefit of the people and communities of Somerset. The proposed investment in the Modern Data and AI Council is not just about technology, it's about enabling a fundamental transformation of how we deliver services, protect the vulnerable, and ensure every pound that we spend delivers the maximum benefit for the people and communities of Somerset. By moving from a fragmented manual set of processes to a unified council-wide AI and data capability, we are laying the foundations for a leaner, more resilient and more responsive council. The evidence from our pilots and the experience of other leading councils is clear. Earlier intervention, better data and smarter use of AI can drive significant efficiencies and improve outcomes for residents. For example, even a modest reduction in homelessness enabled by predictive analytics and joined up data could save hundreds of thousands of pounds every year, while also transforming lives and significantly improving the outcomes for the people we represent. This programme is intentionally designed to be iterative and evidence-led. We will pilot measures and we will refine it as we go, ensuring that every step delivers tangible benefits and that the future investment decisions are well grounded in real-world results. This investment will enable us to recruit and retain the specialist skills we need to build internal capability and reduce our reliance on costly short-term fixes. I think that's really important. The sort of building that capacity within this council will pay huge dividends. Above all, this is an investment in Somerset's future. It will help us to control demand, reduce duplication, and decommission fragile legacy systems. It will empower our staff, improve accountability, and foster a culture of innovation and continuous improvement. And it will ensure that Somerset Council remains at the forefront of public service transformation, delivering better outcomes for our residents and communities, even in the face of uncertainty. I'm confident that this is the right step for Somerset. I think it's a vital step for Somerset. The benefits, financial, operational and social, will grow over time, and the risk of inaction is great. Now is the time to make this investment. So I will shortly hand over to Josh Pym, our Chief Data and Analytics Officer, and Andy Cannell, the Service Director for ICT, who will take us through the paper. But I just wanted to make reference to scrutiny because we took this paper in draft form to the scrutiny committee. I think it was last week. They gave it a thorough going over. I think we spent 2 hours discussing it, which was hugely beneficial. It certainly helped tease out a lot of the issues, covering data security and the ethical and transparent use of AI, the importance of public engagement and accessibility, the need to ensure data quality in the golden record management strand and control costs, the implications for sustainability and the need to monitor the return on investment, all of which are really important points. And crucially, the scrutiny committee has asked, and we have agreed, that there will be regular updates on the use of AI across the council as part of that, because this is a continually developing and very important area of our work, and it's right that we regularly update scrutiny and indeed the whole council and indeed the public on the work that we are doing. So I'm going to hand over to Josh, supported by Andy, who are going to take us through the paper. I've asked him to reduce his introduction by 25%, but I'm sure there'll be plenty of time for questions after that.
Thank you, Theo. Josh and Andy.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Josh Pym. I'm the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Somerset Council. I have been with the council since about 2017. Transformation for Somerset Council and its services is crucial to improve our service delivery and to progress us towards financial sustainability. As part of our phase 2 transformation, we're focused on service transformation. That means improved service delivery. It means better resident outcomes. It means we become more sustainable. In order to achieve this, we need to adopt new ways of working. We need to change and we need to evolve the way that our services are delivered. And that is enabled through our Inspiring Innovation programme. We are inspiring our innovation. And this business case is true innovation. This business case is supported through the Strategic Transformation Partner and through the Inspiring Innovation Board ensures governance, enablement, support and prioritisation. Fundamentally, there's a number of things that are required for transformation. So ICT, HR, comms, data, and the adoption of new technology around AI. That is crucial to enabling our services to transform. It provides the insights to our inspiring innovation. It provides the vision of what is happening within our services. It's identification of bottlenecks. When we have that understanding through our data, we know how to improve our services, we drive that transformation, we adopt new ways of working, we enhance our services, we make real meaningful change for service delivery. That's how Somerset Council becomes sustainable, and that is how improving services for residents. The Modern Data and AI Council business case is part of that. It is not a project, it is not a programme, it is a capability and a capacity across the whole organisation, from children's and adults to place and community, from highways to licensing. Essentially, this business case is around accelerating our use of data and AI, less officer time spent on administrative frustrations, more time spent engaging and supporting residents, less residents and their families requiring urgent, acute support services, a greater focus on prevention and appropriate early help, less time trying to find data, more time making the right decisions based on that information from the data. So how do we achieve this? As part of the business case, we will be building an enterprise data platform. We'll be integrating data from across our separate line of business systems. We will bring data into one platform for insight and knowledge. As part of that, there'll be two elements of cross-cutting: financial information, linking our Dynamics finance system into our individual line of business systems so that services have a much better granular understanding of their costs when costs are directly integrated into the support being delivered. Also, as part of that is golden record matching, moving towards integrated data, supporting integrated services. Practitioners have a holistic view of a family to coordinate the right support at the right time. In Somerset, we have a history of delivering ambitious projects like this. The Transform programme has been doing this since about 2018 and has been nationally leading in the children's sector. Part of this business case is taking that learning that we've done over so many years and expanding this across the whole council. And then how we utilise AI as part of that, so that officers and residents can find the right information that they need at the right time and the data is relevant to their needs. Begin to use AI in a transformative way to integrate AI with services. This is how we adopt new ways of working right across the whole council. This business case builds on our existing principles of AI development around openness and transparency with residents, officers and members, communication and dialogue, engaging residents on how they utilise AI and clearly communicating its use and its benefits to them. Accessibility and inclusion, references digital inclusion, where some people may not be as digitally literate, but also around physical disabilities and how AI can support them in understanding, as well as human in the loop, ensuring that all decisions are validated by a human prior to being accepted. The cost behind this business case primarily relates to staffing costs. We have the capability in Somerset. This business case provides us with greater capacity to scale this and do it faster, and ensuring that the benefits of this programme of work are felt all across the organisation, from front office to back office. We also want sovereignty over our data to ensure security, control and compliance. We don't want to outsource this data to an external organisation. We want to create that capacity internally so that we have that control. We have sovereignty of Somerset's data in Somerset. So as part of phase 2 of the transformation within Somerset and as part of inspiring innovation, we need to ensure that Somerset has strong data foundations to support us going forwards, as well as the tools to ensure that our services are able to transform, have the tools to adapt to new, better ways of working. This is what the Modern Data and AI Council business case is for, to support our transformation going forwards, to accelerate our use of data and AI, and to improve residents' lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Andy, anything to add?
I think some people might not be aware of our history with AI. We've been doing it for 2 years now. We know what we're doing. We're seen, Somerset is seen as, a leading authority in the use of AI and data, and people come to us for advice, and we learn from others as well. So this isn't us sort of jumping on the AI bandwagon. We've been doing this for a while, and we know this is the right decision because we've looked at other options going forward over the last 2 years.
Thank you, Andy. And yeah, just take this opportunity. I've been doing some peer work through my roles with the LGA, the Local Government Association, going to other councils, and just to appreciate and thank your team for all the work that they do, particularly through the amalgamation of 5 different councils and multiple systems coming together. I know there's lots of work in progress, but when the work goes well, you don't notice it. So if we haven't noticed it in the past, my apologies, but I did want to extend our thanks at this point for all that you do and contribute to making Somerset Council deliver for its residents. Thanks. So thank my appreciation there. Heather.
Thank you so much, and thanks for from all the papers and for introducing it so well. I did just want to say thank you for work as well around the Transform Family View is transformative and has been really brilliant. And for those people who aren't quite so close to it, it doesn't just bring together bits within the council, it brings in external partners' data too, and that is a real game changer. Because often you sit in rooms and we can't data share because of blah blah blah, but actually you can if you take all the right precautions. So I'm really pleased that we're using that as a basis and moving it on. I'm really pleased with the emphasis on prevention as well. Of course, you'd expect colleagues around the room to say prevention is really important, and the predictive element as well, which could be scary if you didn't have the human in the loop. So I don't know, this might be crystal ball gazing really, but in terms, how long do you think it might take to get that kind of to be effective predictively? Is this something that's 5 years away, 2 years away? Because I just think that's an extra thing that we couldn't do without this.
Yeah, part of becoming a preventative organisation and moving away from just responding to acute service demand is that we need to engage with our residents at an earlier point. And that means we need to be able to help and identify those individuals that most need of that support. So we think we are close to that. Certain use cases will be more tricky than others. There's a whole load that goes around this, around how we engage with our communities. So how do we ensure people are brought along with that story? How do they understand and ensure that we don't have a black box, that we're really transparent and open around what we're doing, how that's working, and ensuring that we've then got that right support, that we're investing in preventative services, because ultimately this technology is an enabler, but the services need to change around that to accommodate that. So that's the cultural change. It's the integration with our services and how we land technology in a way that technology and our staff are able to work together to help our residents.
Thank you, Bill. Really great introduction. From my point of view, I've got 2 questions, and I think some of this was covered in scrutiny, but it'd be good just to delve into that detail a bit. One is centered around cybersecurity, and obviously the more that we use technology, the more I guess there can be risks involved as to then what happens when it goes wrong. And you've seen with Jaguar Land Rover as an example of them shutting down their factories because of cybersecurity in recent weeks. And then the other element is in my very simple understanding, the more that you use technology and use things even like Copilot, you're using a lot of energy. And I know that in the paper it says that we think that we'll save some energy from dismantling old infrastructure, but do we know at the moment what the impact is from going even further into AI from a carbon position?
Yeah, so this whole programme of work sits within our organisational tenant security. So Andy could probably talk to it much better, but we have our Chief Information Security Officer that protects us as an organisation with firewall protections, with a range of different mechanisms that ensure that external individuals or organisations can't access into Somerset Council. As part of this programme of work, we then go a step further. So we've got our organisational bubble, And then within that, we've got an additional bubble where our data sits. And as part of that, we provide user identification. We're able to use conditional access policies, which ensures geographically where is the person trying to access this data from, so we can lock it down to certain locations. We provide encryption for that data, so it's fully encrypted within our platform, and we then provide role-based access controls on top of that. So we actually, for some staff members, what we will do is, actually for all use cases, we will evaluate what is proportionate and relevant for that individual to see. And so that means for some practitioners, actually what they see is slightly less than other practitioners, because there might be data that's not proportionate to their role. So we take a multi-layered approach to ensuring that data is secure within the platform. On the climate piece, so yeah, absolutely. There's been a lot in the media around AI's impact on the climate. We are using Microsoft's infrastructure for a lot of this. As part of that, they're committed to being carbon neutral by 2030. I believe that their data centers, the existing ones, will be carbon neutral by the end of this year, and they are on track to meet that one. We are able to monitor and track our usage of our carbon footprint through Microsoft technology. So we have monitoring applications that we can then see based on our usage and consumption, what is the impact of that? And so we can track and monitor that to ensure that it's meeting that 2030 target. Also, as part of this, through some of our device refresh, is that we're starting to have laptops that are built differently, and so they're able to run some of that AI intuitively on the laptop itself. So where we're not needing to rely on data centers so much, actually our laptops can do a lot of that processing. Now, obviously that requires electricity to run your laptop, but it means it's more local and it's more efficient when we're able to do it through that way as well. So there's a number of factors there.
Sarah?
Thank you. As someone who also sat through the scrutiny committee, I can assure everybody that there was a great deal of work done, and I think every question that we could possibly think of was asked several times by some people differently and different ways. I'm afraid. Anyway, going on to this, I'm very interested in this. I'm somebody who's a bit of a I'm just old really, I think, but I can work a computer, obviously, but there are lots of things I don't know. So I'm very interested, and I'm on a little subgroup in the council learning about how this is going to work. But what I wanted to say was, I believe that what you're doing internally is an enabling thing which will help our partner, because if they'd come to us and we weren't doing this, they'd be saying, this is what you need to do. I think that's fairly clear. So that's a good thing that we're already doing this and that we have excellent in-house capability, which I know part of this business case says we need to scale up, because actually the team is very small and can't manage just with the people they've got, the scale of the enterprise. So I accept all that, and I'm very happy about less time spent on administration. I think everybody would be pleased about that. Yesterday, I was at the NHS Somerset AGM, where I was speaking to people on their data side, because they've got quite a big thing going on there. And they said that now people across their bodies, and including actually adults as well, they can access platforms, including ours internally, to get certain information when they need it. But that information is not then stored in a cloud anywhere, so it's not accessible by a third party, which I thought was quite interesting. So I thought perhaps you could explain a little bit more what that means. I think I understood it, but I'm not quite sure if I got it, but I thought that was quite an interesting thing. And the second thing is that, what about the downside of this? I think somebody's already mentioned that, but with AI, I mean, it's great, it does lots of things, and I know we need to have the human input, but I mean, I'm somebody who thinks that driverless cars are going to be dangerous rather than an advance. I think I'm really worried about them. So there's that going on. I think the public need to be reassured that use of AI is done in a way that won't put them and their lives at risk, and most importantly their data.
So I'm going to take an assumption. I think what you're talking about in relation to the NHS was potentially the Somerset Integrated Digital e-record system, which brings together data that we provide as a council. So some children's, some adult social care data, so that when you as an individual present to A&E, that they're able to best help and support you. What this business case is trying to do is that, to an extent, for the council to provide the same view where we work across multiple different services. That means, as part of our infrastructure and co-working with our partners, is that we build interfaces between our different systems. So that means that we as the council are not just locked down, we actually share data with the NHS, and the NHS shares data with us. We share data with Avon and Somerset Constabulary, and they share data with us. We do that with a range of different partners across the VCFSE organisation, so voluntary community faith sector organisations, as part of Transform has been doing for the last kind of 5 odd years, really. What that gives us is that much richer picture. So we absolutely want to move towards systems where we understand a resident in a far better way and are able to respond to them in a more intuitive way. One of the things I keep coming back to is a lot of people talk about the risks of data sharing. And actually, for me, it's kind of flipping that the other way. Actually, what is the risk of not sharing this information? We read time and time again, serious case review after serious case review, child death after child death, where organisations have failed to share information in a timely and appropriate manner that ultimately could have prevented that. So for me, there's a big question here is what is the risk of not sharing information when it pertains to safeguarding matters? So there's a big piece there. Certainly, we work really closely with the NHS on their platforms. Your other question has completely gone out of my mind, so do remind me.
I was talking about the risks of AI, and I suppose also to just expand. I mean, I've got a friend who works for Google in big data, and I mean, there's so much data around these days, and these small devices can have stuff on that we will never ever want to access. But on the other hand, are we going to be able to be to select what's needed and discard the rest? Is that how it's going to work? Because I think that'd be a really useful exercise.
Yeah, certainly as part of our information governance policy, and the approach that we take to data collection is that we're only storing the data that is relevant and has a purpose. If we're storing data that doesn't have a purpose, we have no reason to hold that data. And in the event, we've never had one, and I doubt we ever will, but if there was a security breach, actually there's no point in having that data, so why would we store it? So we actively delete data that we have no use for. It's pointless for us to have, it costs us money, and it's a risk. Our approach to AI development, just find my right notes. We've got kind of a number of key guiding principles that we adopt as part of our AI development. So that's around being open and transparent. That means engaging with residents. We will be releasing videos for some of the AI projects that we're currently working on so that parents and carers can be informed of what's happening in a really easy and interactive way. We want to ensure open communication and dialogue around how we use this, ensuring there's appropriate amount of information and understanding. Some of that accessibility and inclusion. What we also do on a technical side is do multiple layers of testing and evaluation. So that starts off by using pseudo-anonymized data and moving it through that to ensure that the AI can work in the way that we expect it to. We then start moving into bias testing. So we're checking and validating against biases. I, as an individual, try and be as unbiased as I can, but I will still hold my own biases. So that also means checking our blind spots. That means bringing in ethical peer groups to ensure that we've seen this solution from all different angles and ensuring that we're approaching it in the right way. So we take a number of different steps and a phased testing approach, and where AI is not delivering the value, we will stop those projects. We will not be releasing AI where it's not meeting our quality targets. As an organisation, I think we take a much firmer approach to AI testing. We're far more rigorous than I think some other local authorities do. Just to put into context, some organisations take it as using Excel. And so I wouldn't notify you that I was going to use Excel to process your data. And some organisations are taking that same approach. That is not the way we are doing it in Somerset Council. We know people have concerns about AI. We want to enable them to express those concerns, and we want to take that feedback on as we develop programmes and projects.
Just to add to that, this is not just a Somerset issue. It's across the whole sector and across the whole UK. And we are working with LGA. We've talked to DSIT about some of these things, and especially when you go back to the environmental stuff, they've been encouraged to add an extra chapter to their AI playbook around sustainability as well. So that's coming out. We've seen a draft. It'll be coming out publicly soon. So these are big issues around that kind of fear of, I'm going to lose my knowledge, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to be replaced by a robot. It's that kind of outside fear. So we're working across the sector to come up with those answers, because it's not we can't fix those answers. And you know, we talked to Microsoft and some of the other vendors to say, how are you dealing with it as well? Because so we kind of bring them all in together for those challenges.
Thank you. Oh, Liz, sorry, Giles. Next.
If I may, please, Chair, I just want to say how much I welcome this paper. I see this as the bridge between our first phase of transformation in this council and those successes with Transform Family View, with Homes and Horizons, with My Life, My Future. And I see this now as enabling us moving into the full phase 2 of transformation in a really good place. And I particularly want to thank Josh for his ability to explain really complex technical things. Bear in mind, Chair, that I started work when the manual typewriter still ruled the office. And you explain them, Josh, in a way that enables members to understand both the opportunity and how we are managing those risks, which is incredibly important. I think you may have a race for seconders today, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. I was just going to perhaps probe a little bit more. Theo mentioned the ethical considerations being raised at scrutiny. I was reflecting, you know, at one point back when I had a real job and was teaching in a school, and I was responsible for attendance, and I was asked to produce a list of what year 7s would experience attendance issues later on in their school career, and I thought, oh, that's interesting because that's a crystal ball exercise. And then I started making the list, and I realised that there were all sorts of assumptions and almost prejudices that I had to recognise in myself as I was putting that list together. And then applying it to this, there's a machine doing that process as well. How do we build an ethical consideration into an artificial intelligence process? That's probably the title for a thesis, isn't it?
It certainly is, and I'm glad you raised academia, because we do lean into that quite a lot, where we're looking at some of these solutions. That is some of the places we will start around some of the most recent research into the causes of certain things. So that's one of the things. I think the biggest one here is that this isn't a computer says no approach. So ultimately, the final thing making a decision in all of this is a human, and that might be an officer, that might be a resident, that might be a member. Ultimately, the decision-making authority is not delegated to the AI. It's for a human to make that decision. The AI is there to help pull all the information together and to provide that better picture. So where we've got lots of different organizations and services that are engaged in an individual's life, it's a really complex picture. So we're using AI to help that practitioner understand all the relevant information and say, actually, you know, we might have more of a concern here, or we might have less of a concern, but it's ultimately the responsibility of that officer that decides the outcome. And it's their purpose is to take that information in and to scrutinize it, because it will be wrong at times. And so the officer will then need to make appropriate decisions based on that. It's ultimately their call. AI is there to help and support them. But we as individuals have biases, and so us developing it are constantly checking our own biases, and we need to be cognizant of the biases within the data itself, in which we are constantly checking for data quality.
Thank you so much. Richard.
Well, most of you have stolen most of my questions, but I do want to just go back to some real basics of this, and that is the concerns of residents and what have you over the whole use of AI, and a bit of an explanation that this is about providing the best results for them, and not having an understanding of AI or technology will not disadvantage any of our residents or any of our anybody that we use this data for. And I think we've got to be very clear, if that is the case, that you do not have to have a degree in AI for our use of it to be advantageous to the people that we are, in the system. So could you just be clear on that?
Yeah, so working with our partners across the integrated care service, we have a outlined document of high risk AI use cases where we have decided not to use AI. And that's a shared commitment across our integrated care system. One of the key parts of that is that we will not use AI to disadvantage people. The purpose of AI is to enhance our services, to make it easier for people to find information. And so one of the key ethical considerations of that is, will this disadvantage people? And if it will, we're not going to use it. We are very clear, we are not using AI to disadvantage people. We are using it to improve services. You mentioned communication. A key part of that, and that's what we're working through with our colleagues in the communications team, is how we communicate AI in a really easy, intuitive way, and ensuring that it is relevant to the demographic that the AI is going to be used. So what I mean by that is where we're going to use AI in a children's sphere, actually we need to ensure our communications is tailored to that demographic. We need to ensure that our explanation of AI is accessible to the children that will be in that arena. So that's a key part of our communications, is that it needs to be tailored to the people that will be using it. And that means for some of our technical stuff, we can be more technical. For where we're engaging with some of children within care, we actually need to really make it simplistic and an understanding of how that works. So that's our approach.
Okay, just open up to other members in the room or online, and I did see some hands in the dark, and I don't know whether we can get a light on over there. I can just about see it's Lucy, isn't it? Yeah, Lucy. Sorry, it's the light behind you, I think, is silhouetting you.
Gosh, I was going to say, I don't feel I'm sitting in the dark, but I might be slightly in the dark on this topic, to be fair, just in terms of my age and my own technological kind of missings, as it were. So I wasn't going to ask a question because I was here for that 2-hour debate last week, and I don't want to protract things, but you did see last week that one of our young councillors described his scepticism over the use of AI. Now, I've got 3 young adult children who are all professionals, who also share this skepticism. And I was talking about it after the meeting, and they said it's quite common in their age group for the younger people to feel skeptical about AI, and that actually the concerns are their futures and how they might look in a world that they feel has already changed so much and taken opportunities from them. They fear what more can be done by the use of AI. And I wondered whether you had any reassurances, though you are a young person yourself and obviously very keen on this, but do you have reassurances that you can give to young people who might be thinking, I would really love to have a job working in some field involved with the council, that their futures aren't going to be harmed by AI?
Thank you, Lucy, for the compliment, as all remarks are addressed through the chair. I'm feeling very flattered. Josh.
Thank you. I'm going to try and not turn my back to you. I think there's a good amount of skepticism within the whole of the UK, actually. When you look at international figures around AI skepticism, I think we're rightly skeptical in the UK, because I think we need that skepticism. I think it's really important to have that. Yeah. I think there's a element where, and I think this is one of maybe the things that is playing out, that younger generation are more tech literate enough to understand the risks, but they're not ingrained in the process of AI enough to understand a lot of the mitigations that we're taking. Now, I can show you over and over, where we've inbuilt data quality checking, validation, fact mapping into our approach. I'm not going to do it because I'm conscious of time and I don't want scrutiny length again, but we're taking a lot of actions to ensure that. We're taking this really slow. Our rollout to AI, frustratingly for some officers and members, is really slow. But we're doing that because we want to ensure that we've got that engagement with residents beforehand. We want to ensure that scrutiny. So we're taking a lot of different technical actions. That also means really engaging with our residents and our officers that are then using those tools as well, so that they feel, as part of that testing, they've had the opportunity to validate it, to ensure that accuracy before we move that into a production environment.
And can I just very quickly through you, Chair? So what about jobs? Do you see this as something that is going to have an effect on the jobs that we're able to offer?
I think as part of any technology shift, if you look back, if you look at kind of Y2K and the introduction of websites, that does change some of the job market. What we're very clear on is we are not using AI to remove vast amounts of jobs. We are not doing this purely with the aspiration of removing staff members. What we are trying to do is enhance those staff members that are here, and that will mean that people work in different ways. We know as part of our transformation, we need to adopt the ways that we work. We need to change that. And AI is a part of how we change how we work. So I think it's more of a shift in how jobs are to adopt new technology and to integrate within their working sphere, how we culturally help officers, residents, members understand how AI integrates with them. But yeah, certainly a part of this is not about vast job cuts because of AI, mainly because I don't even think we're there. I don't think the technology is at a point where that's even a feasible thought. Right now, this is absolutely about integrating AI into our services to improve them. Some of the things we've heard from our evaluation of Magic Notes, which is a transcription tool, is actually is a genuine practitioner saying, I saw my boy at the weekend. I didn't have to work all the way through the weekend writing up reports. That's why AI is so impactful. It's that administrative frustration. Actually, yeah, as a practitioner, we want them out engaging with our residents. We don't want them in the office having to write up vast quantities of notes. That's where AI changes that role. That's where AI makes it easier. And that's how AI then transforms that service in the future to be better.
Thank you. Theo, do you want to add to the answer?
Yeah, why not? No, I just want to say, two different strands to the answer. One is, of course, this is a growth area for employment. This paper involves us recruiting 14.5 FTE over an 18-month period. So that will be, there are jobs in this area as well. That's part of the answer. We can't, AI and the development of technology is going to happen. We need to react to it properly. Skepticism is absolutely healthy. We should be skeptical. We should be curious. We should make sure we put in all the safeguards. But ultimately, we need to make sure we harness what is inevitably going to be a developing technology. And I think one of the really interesting things that AI does, and Josh has alluded to it, is what we are developing is a way to use AI to take away from our day-to-day work the stuff that doesn't need to be done by a human. And that's really powerful because that means that you can spend more of your time focusing on the stuff that is uniquely human and that we as people are bringing to those roles. So whether that's as a social worker, whether that's in customer services, actually we really need to value those things, whether it's all about compassion or creativity or the ability to care and empathize. Those are the things that are uniquely human, and this is going to enable us to focus more on that and less on dealing with a great big database. So I think there's huge potential benefits for people who are in the workforce to be able to flourish more by doing those things, and also for the outputs.
And Diego.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two questions and one very short comment. Firstly, can't wait for the robots to take over. Generally, really excited for that, and to not be a councillor perhaps in 10 years' time. The scrutiny comments. Firstly, you mentioned a couple of hours debate. Just disappointed it's not in the report or a supplement to this report. Those comments that came through scrutiny. So I think that's given thought about next time round. Two questions on this one. One around staffing. You mentioned about less officer time doing back office work and more serving the residents. Completely get that. But I'm wondering, as part of this, or maybe if it's not relevant to this paper, have unions been consulted or engaged about workforce their thoughts or concerns around AI and the way forward. It may not be relevant to this paper, but AI in general. And my second one is, you said that you didn't want to outsource data, wanted to keep it in our control. Fine. Has any exploration been done to organisations that do this sort of work, outside organisations, and whether they could add more value or not? Just wondering if you explored outside organisations doing this piece of work.
Sorry, I'm going to turn it so that I'm back to you again. So as part of rolling this out, what we're really keen, and one of our kind of key ways that we're rolling out projects in this is that we're co-developing with staff, so that as part of this, they're engaged really early on. They see the development. The approach that we've taken with some of our AI projects is that we have, so we do an iterative design cycle, and then we have a quality gateway, and we phase that across multiple phases. So we do an iteration of very technical work. We come back to the staff and say, actually, has this reached the quality gateway that we set? And so staff at every single phase as part of this are key in saying, yes, this can progress. If we meet that quality gateway and we don't meet it, we go back around that process again and we come back to the same quality gateway. So we can't pass through those quality gateways till the staff members that will be using this have validated that it's accurate. So we are really keen that our staff members are engaged early. They feel part of the development of this, because ultimately my technical team needs their help in understanding how this needs to work. We hold the technical capability. We need to ingrain that with our services to understand how that fits. How's the culture? How does that integrate new ways of working that's not possible before? So we're engaging with staff really early as part of this. And I've forgotten your second question.
The other thing is we do have constant engagement with the people that are using these systems. So we have quarterly surveys. We've done that for Copilot. We've done that for Magic Notes. We ask people if they're getting use out of it, how many hours they're saving, do they want to hand it back? And we've seen a kind of, in the early stages, people were handing it back because the technology was not as good as it is now. Loads of people, but we get very few handing it back. We get some people that say, if you take it away, I'll leave. So we've kind of shifted in that kind of, and so we are kind of engaging. I don't think we've necessarily engaged directly with unions. And to be honest, I hadn't thought about that. So maybe we should think about whether they want to be engaged on that. But we've definitely spoken to all the members of staff that have been using it and stopped using it or want to use more of it to get that kind of understanding of what people are using and how they're getting those gains from it.
So just the second one, Chair, for you, was about whether or not you've explored outside organisations doing this piece of work. You said you wanted the data to stay in, not out.
Yep, so there's a range, or there's not a range, but there are some providers. So there's organisations that we've engaged with in the past that say they can build this for us and they will do it as a custom thing. Very costly, doesn't meet all of our needs, and would be tricky to then expand. The business case that we're proposing here, we want to be across the whole organisation. We want it to touch frontline, back office, from people-based services to place-based organisations and communities. So finding a technology provider that can do that cheaper than we can do internally just doesn't exist. We have the capability in-house. We've proven that over the last 5 years. We've proven that over the last 2 years with our use of AI. Actually, this is about Somerset taking control and not outsourcing it. It's about Somerset saying, actually, we've got these skill sets. What we just need to do is accelerate that usage. Then you've also got organisations that have fully built products. And so you will hand them all of Somerset's data. They will do some black box stuff and they will come out with some risk models. And we've spoken to organisations that have gone with that approach, and we said, "Great, you're showing some fantastic outcomes." We speak to some of their technical staff. We say, "How does it work?" And they say, "We don't know. The black box to us. How can we communicate that to our residents? We don't know how it works ourselves." So we need to have that understanding of how this is built by building it ourselves with the skill sets that we've got in Somerset, so that we can actually communicate that in a much better way to our residents. And provide that trust and reassurance.
Thank you, Theo.
I mean, just to add on to that, and of course, it will give us that flexibility and resilience, and it will, develop the capacity in Somerset Council, which potentially has wider beneficial impacts for Somerset as a whole, as an area for this, this area of economic work. So I think that's really important. And I just wanted to highlight, Chair, I'm not trying to encourage you to do this, but the Leader of the Opposition has said he's looking forward to being replaced by a robot. Not sure I look forward to that. But I will highlight, of course, that last month Albania became the first country to appoint an AI agent as a member of the cabinet. So if you're looking to increase capacity.
And of course, that wouldn't replace anybody. That would be an additional appointment. Indeed, and yeah, I was delighted. I was at Centre Parks last week. I was delighted to have a robot deliver my pizza, and there were these Daleks rolling around the floor of the restaurant. It was quite an experience. The new world is both very welcome and at times slightly terrifying. The use of stairs, of course, defeated the Daleks. Anyway. So just to reiterate, how thankful we are for all the work that's gone behind this. Somerset is at the cutting edge of a lot of this technology. I do get emails from companies from time to time. I think I had one yesterday. Offering the use of AI in all sorts of service areas. I do pass them on, but very aware that we're probably ahead of the organisations that are approaching us. Is kind of the reality. I do reflect how important it was for my departed in-laws ran a dairy farm, and the AI man was always very welcome on a dairy farm, and I'm sure AI is equally welcome now, but a very, very different context. Theo, the scrutiny recommendations, is there anything that we needed to add to our recommendations before us from the feedback?
I don't think there's anything we needed to add. We might want to endorse the approach of regular updates to scrutiny on the organisation's use of AI.
Can we add that in as a third recommendation to confirm that we will be updating the scrutiny committee on a regular basis on this? And I do welcome and thank them for their interest and contribution to this. Okay, with that amendment accepted in, do we have a proposer, please? Councillor Theobald Philip, seconder. Oh, Liz won that by a mile. All those in favour, all those against. I didn't see the AI member of cabinet voting there, so that is duly carried. And thank you so much, Josh and Andy. Please pass our thanks on to all the team that are working on these and other projects. We do appreciate what goes on. Thank you very much. Okay, which brings us on to item 8, which is deployment of Somerset's high needs provision and capital allocation. And I'd like to invite Councillor Heather Shearer to introduce the paper.
Thank you so much, Chair. I'm trying to resist making some comment about the AI member of the cabinet not having declared an interest, so probably couldn't vote. But just to say that we're moving now on the agenda to 2 items. Which have been, in a sense, trailed previously. There are 2 items which are integral to our deficit management plan, the DMP, to look after to take steps to reduce, let's say, our deficit on the DSG. So the first one is, as you say, it's a high needs provision capital allocation. I won't say too much I'll make only a couple of comments before I bring Phil in if there's anything I miss, or indeed Richard or any of my other colleagues in the room. But just to say that the deficit management plan was agreed as an overarching principle on the 6th of August by executive. This will be the start of a series of papers which will be coming forward. So 2 today, and I expect every executive meeting coming forward will have some. the report sets out our plans for allocating, if you like, the capital allocation that we have, how we're going to spend it that has come through from government over the next 3 years to address the increasing need for appropriate school places for children with SEND, special educational needs in our county, which we all know is increasing. The uses include the delivery of our SEN or special education need units that we've trailed, start opening from the beginning of September. The first phase of them have opened in mainstream schools to create those fabulous inclusive classrooms to ensure the children can get education close to home without having to travel to the other side of the county. So the report talks about the SEN units and the plans going forward for those. It also talks about expanding our special school places where possible, often a challenge. We've certainly already made expansions to some of them in the past, but there'll be more that we can do with this capital allocation. And also schools access initiative, and we have spelled it out, the SAI, just how we actually support mainstream schools to be more physically accessible for children. So they're the main things that the report covers, but it also sets out very carefully, I think, and very clearly, and I'm grateful to the authors of the report for being so clear. The report sets out the cost of delivery, numbers of placements of each type to be delivered. It also outlines, if you like, the delegations that need to be in place in order to move swiftly through the delivery of these things, and also that we'll report back in 12 months. So they're the highlights, I think, for the report. If I've missed anything out, I'll let Phil Kurd add that, but if not, I'm happy to take questions as well. Thank you. Was there anything?
Thank you very much, Phil. Do you want to add, please?
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to reiterate, this is a cornerstone of our deficit management plan. And as of yesterday, Somerset has 613 children in independent, non-maintained specialist placements at an annual average cost of £70,000. If we acknowledge that our in-year high needs overspend is £40 million, but those independent placements are costing us £42 million, this programme of 352 state-maintained specialist places becomes even more important. Thank you.
Thank you for that update on the data. Yeah, that is particularly remarkable, isn't it? Any other executive members wishing to speak? Liz.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to ask my colleague Heather whether any thought has been given to the term SEN units and how that might be phrased differently so that it becomes more personal, because a unit is a unit, but that doesn't really refer to the young people that these units we will build to help them have a better experience through education in the mainstream sector.
Thank you, if I may. Yes, and I share your concern. I think there are technical reasons why the word unit has been used and differentiated from other provisions that we have around resource bases and so on. But you're absolutely right. We cannot overstate how important language is. I mean, even now, I hate just saying SEND, because that categorizes children with an acronym that nobody really wants. And when you consider when that law was made, the laws back in 2014 were changed. The intention, perhaps not the consequence, but the intention was to actually destigmatize wherever possible, keep it human, keep children focus, not make children feel, different in a bad way. So I absolutely get it. And I was talking to a colleague within one of our early years units, essentially, that said, oh God, why did you call it a unit? Can we have like something about accessibility, about inclusion? So again, I very deliberately there just said, these are our inclusive classrooms where children can get the kind of education that they need. We may not be able to unbrand it from the technical point of view, but I really welcome the challenge about the language that we use. Children are the reason why we're doing all of this, and the improved outcomes are the reason. And any of these things that Phil and the team do, and all of the team do, if we can always, through the DMP work and every other transformation work, do the right things for children, we will get not only better outcomes for children, but we'll actually usually save money, because it means getting ahead of children in crisis, preventing that, keeping children at home, ensuring their education, they're from pre-birth and parenting, and those early interventions that Rachel and the team in our health visitors do. All of that stuff is the right stuff to do, and that will have both types of good impact. So I really welcome you saying that. I'll take that away, and we'll make sure that all of our our comms reflect these are children. They're not problems to solve.
Indeed, your language is so important, and I know language in SEND has changed considerably from the start of my teaching career to the end of it. Yeah, I know that schools are creative in how they internally brand these things, rather than the external use of the naming. Yeah.
Absolutely, if I may, forgive me for talking, but you're absolutely right, and I should have said that yes, we internally refer to these as SEND units, but actually we know they have different names out there, and they fit in with their schools. And the very best of our schools, and we have many really good schools, are just inherently inclusive, and they're doing that right thing. So yeah, we just must match that in our conversations. Thank you.
Heather. Sarah.
Yes, my understanding is this is a progress from what's already been started, because we've got quite a lot of schools which have already had extensions built or classrooms changed or whatever. And I'm very pleased to see this. I mean, I really can't say I know a lot about it. My children are long since grown up, but with adults, it's one of the challenges is the bespoke nature of the provision we provide for each person. I know this is the same in children's. So you need a safe space, a separate space. Sometimes you need somebody in the classroom. Sometimes you need a bit of both. And I think that is what we are doing in Somerset already, but we need to do more of it. And I totally accept that this is the right thing to do. And it must be, because my feeling, and again, I have no teaching knowledge, but children to be in a mainstream school is the norm for the majority of the population, and children with special gifts, special or whatever they have, need to be part of that as part of their background, so that they can say, yes, I did this, I did what everybody else does, I was part of the mainstream, I was part of this. And to be inclusive with children, to me, is terribly important. So I'm really pleased that we're doing this. And if it will have a separate side to it, which means that children won't need quite so much specific separate education, then that's good as well, because I think it's better for them to experience what other children experience. So I'm really supportive of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't think there's much response needed there.
I don't think so, except thank you for being so supportive about it. And we do try to differentiate. That's why there's not just one fix. That's why there are units and resources and schools and so on. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from members on this one? Not seeing anybody online or in the room. So we move to the recommendations. So we are approving the projects to which the HNPCA can be deployed, as set out in section 2.3 of the report. Approve the average per place cost for each type of place delivered, as set out in 2.4. Approve the number of places to be delivered within the state maintained sector over a 3-year period, as set out in 2.5, and delegate responsibilities to the Service Director for Education and Section 151 officer to develop, commission and deliver the capital programme that meets the government's conditions and the deployment of the HNPCA as is in line with the recommendations A to C above, and a report will be brought back in 12 months on progress made against the targets achieved in recommendations B and C. Just to clarify on the, I didn't see a scrutiny section, but I think it did go, or as with all the DNP stuff, go through scrutiny, didn't it? So it has gone through that process.
Yes, yes, Chair, it has. It went on the 22nd.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I've got just to double check that. And a proposer, please. Councillor Shearer, seconded by Councillor Lashon. Those in favour, those against, clearly carried. Thank you very much for that one. And we move on to item 9, section 19 of the Education Act, 1996, Somerset Council Policy and Procedures. Heather, to introduce this one as well.
Thank you, indeed. Thanks so much. The second one for today before your break, or our break. So exactly right. The title is very key. This is section 19 of the Education Act in 1999. Sorry, long time ago. Not further ago even than I thought. 1996 rather than 1999. But the point is not a glib one. it was obviously reacting to the needs of children who may not find themselves able to go to school. So we needed to find, we have a duty to educate children who cannot be at school. That was principally done at the time through pupil referral units for those children who are excluded, and also hospital education for those children who are too poorly to be in school. Of course, we all now know nationally and locally, it is all over the press, the increasing numbers of children who find themselves unable to be at school, very often for some of the phrases we use at EBSA, that emotionally based school avoidance. Sometimes it's social and emotional mental health needs. Absolutely real situations for those children to be faced with and challenges. Very often, those children are finding it hard to be in school way before they can get any kind of diagnosis. So I think what a lot of our local authorities now are trying to address is this issue of trying to provide education other than at school, another acronym, EOTAS, education other than at school, within the bounds of what we're legally obliged to do and can do, but also within this very constrained financial budget. And what we do need to do, and we've had, obviously there have been challenges to the way we have been spending money under this particular section, quite rightly. Local government ombudsman has looked at that. We've been working with them to make sure that we approach this part of the law in a way that is both within the law, which is very important, but also allows us to get funding to children in a sense before that crisis really, before they get to crisis. And oftentimes before they even have an educational healthcare plan, just so we can be pretty light in our feet and ensure schools can get the resources that they need appropriately to make sure it fits with the law. So the keystone to that is that we have to have a policy which makes sense within the law and helps us navigate that to keep us right. And that has been drafted. And also the key part of it is that the transparency around decision making and also a multi-professional approach to decision making, so that we have the proposers have panels which will make decisions about what is and isn't right for the Section 19 funding. Now we did bring this to scrutiny. I'm afraid it wasn't as fulsome in terms of all of the papers, but scrutiny did actually discuss this on the 22nd, and the need for us to improve the way we approach Section 19 was definitely accepted, and the concept of having this approach was accepted. But a very good challenge was put to us by scrutiny, which was that I, as a decision maker essentially, but certainly we as a council, need to be assured that the proposal that was in place was actually compliant with the Section 19, and we have sought legal opinion on that and got it. That also, quite rightly, we were challenged around there has been case law on this, and again, that legal advice said that we were compliant with the comments made around the case law. So I think we're in a position to approve it. I believe so. Obviously, though, one of the things that is very important is not just the policy, but the very next thing as well is how we actually enact it. So the implementation of this, the terms of reference for this, a protocol about how this will work, eligibility criteria for this multi-professional panel to consider is really key, so that all decisions can be transparent and can be fair, as well as process mapping. What we don't want to do is put all this fabulous stuff in place and then it all gets slower and harder to enact. So we have to work fairly and quickly. So definitely the implementation is really key. We're absolutely committed to bringing reports back both to executive, which I think is in the recommendations, but also to scrutiny. Certainly with the first 3 months of this process working, we would want to take that back to scrutiny so that they can properly hold to account what we're doing and see how we're doing and see if any improvements need to be made. But I think it's really important they hold us to account on that one, and I always welcome the work that we do with them. But I think this is just this is a really important paper for our service. I mean, paper's a paper, but this change is so important to our service. It's important to our council because we can use money more effectively, but it's also going to be important to the children and families and the schools who are waiting for financial support to find out if that's available to ensure that we can keep our children educated as well as we can as possible. I also just wanted to say this is not intended to ration money that we have got to spend, as it were, we need to spend. By no means. It's really about trying to make sure that the children who need that help to continue education when they're not at school get that help quickly enough, and that the right children get it and at the right time. that's my introduction to it. I didn't know I've got Richard by my side. And I've also got Fiona Fee. If there's anything you feel I need to have said or highlighted in as a highlight and introduction, please let me know. Otherwise, we can always take questions.
Fiona, Richard, anything to add?
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Chair. I think Heather has summarised that really clearly. This policy is critical in terms of moving forward an area that's been a gap for some time in our Section 19. We've got a great deal across the system in education following the restructure in place, but this critical group of children, we are not fulfilling our duty, and the LGO have been very clear about that, and it's critical that we move forward and ensure this group that are eligible for Section 19 actually have it.
Thank you very much. I do notice on the paper, it's again, following up from Diego's comment earlier, we've got scrutiny comments to be completed following the scrutiny review on the 22nd of September. We've had the 22nd of September and the scrutiny, and we've got no comments in that section of the report. I do see the chair online. I do wonder, Lee, if you're able to talk. Is there anything you wanted to add? You may be on grandparent duty simultaneously. No, okay. Thank you. Anything from executive member colleagues? Not. Oh, Sarah.
I'd just like a bit of more explanation actually about what actually happens if a child does fall under Section 19 and what we then do about it. Because this, I mean, I just need to clear up in my head. It's not the same as home educating a child, is it? If the parent says they're going to home educate them. Or is it the same as school refuser, a child that won't go into school? I mean, where does it fit in? Now, I know we've got school exclusion mentioned here, and I confess I haven't read it in great detail, but I just wonder if you could explain exactly when it applies and why we're not doing enough at the moment.
I don't know, put my hand up, do I? You're looking at me straight away. I'll make a start on the answer, and then I'll go to Fee to actually give me more detail. But essentially, you're absolutely right. This one of the things that we got from our legal advice and from case law is we cannot have a blanket policy about this. So every single child's circumstance has to be looked at individually. And you're right, some children are out of school kind of forever, which is really frightening. You have some children who have to be educated at home until their place at a school is going to be negotiated and sought for them. So it may only be a couple of months or weeks, or there could be something where they're that's when there might be transition from one school to another, but perhaps within a school career you might find yourself out for a period of time as a child, and then we have to help you back in. So there's lots of different reasons why that might happen. And I think one of the things that we have got an emphasis at the moment when children have special education needs of a sort, that one of the only ways to actually get extra support for those children to either have some education tuition at home or to go somewhere else other than school is only through an education healthcare plan. And that can be very long-winded and very, it's right to be comprehensive, but for some certain circumstances, it would be much better for those children just to get some extra support, which is tailored to them very quickly without doing any education healthcare plan approach. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm now going to look over to Fee to give the proper answer rather than my amateur introduction to it, if there's more kind of depth around how Section 19 would support us currently.
Thank you, Fiona.
Thank you, Heather. So at a more granular detail, across education, and across our teams, we are aware, we're looking regularly at the data that tells us where children are and how they are attending. So we're targeting those children that we know are becoming risk of non-attendance. And we're working with our advisory teams and stepping in early, supporting staff, supporting families, alongside our FIS teams, but also with our health colleagues as well. So we're already working well in that space and supporting children to re-engage with education. The group of children that are out for prolonged periods and potentially are moving towards needing educational healthcare plans, that is the group of children that actually have gone beyond the point of that early intervention, working with schools to make reasonable adjustments,
and need something that is other than education at that time, with a view that if we get that right for a targeted period of time and at the right time, we can get children back into education. So the package, so once we've kind of worked through the support for schools, those reasonable adjustments, working with families, working with children, young people, actually when a group of professionals across health, children, social care and education come together and say, actually, this child needs a different education at this time, the package will be very bespoke to them. So it will include an element of education. That may be through our AV1 robots. It might be tuition in the home. It might be somewhere else, depending on the individual circumstances. There'll be a package of mentoring and kind of therapeutic support as well. Lots of these children are neurodiverse and have significant anxiety around leaving the home, going into school. So actually there needs to be a kind of therapeutic mentoring package element to the package as well. Once those children have been allocated that package, they're also allocated an officer from the virtual school, which is my team, and we're working regularly with that young person, that family, and that education setting, and those providers to regularly review how well that package is going, and looking to move that child gradually back into that education, because that's ultimately where we want children to be. And if we can do that successfully, and actually we don't need an educational healthcare plan, then that's great. And we can do that, and we know that is successful when we get the right support at the right time. But without that policy, it's incredibly difficult we don't have the resource to put that bespoke package in without an educational healthcare plan.
Okay, so for the purposes of the recording, we've seen that Councillor Lee Redmond is on a train and therefore can't give feedback. But I see Councillor Frances Nicholson's got her hand raised. Good morning, Frances.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had hopes that Councillor Redmond would, as chairman of the committee, or the vice chairman, would have been able to speak. But I sit in their absence. I sit on the committee. I was there. We didn't feel that we could make any proper comment on a policy that was not before us, because we didn't have the policy. There were some concerns raised that were legal concerns, which I believe our officers had thought they had gone through, but were going to meet that particular scrutiny member, I think, afterwards to look at, and I don't know whether they wish to make any comment on that at the moment. For myself, as a member of the committee, I supported the view that we couldn't comment on a policy we hadn't seen. I have since read it, and I would, because it's one of these papers, I am supportive of the idea, if it is possible, to move things on for a child more quickly than going through the whole cumbersome EHCP process, and possibly avoid it altogether. That would be good, but it does have to be individually based and very carefully done. And it would be a great pity, and this is me as a member of the scrutiny committee wanting to say things that I'm saying rather than representing the committee. It would be a great pity if there were ever a perception that this was simply a way to avoid EHCP applications, and a way to wind down and overspend in the high needs block, rather than being child centred. So the plea from me as a member is that we are very, very clear it's child centred.
Heather, do you want to respond?
Yes, thank you, and I'm really grateful to Frances for making those comments. And yeah, I'm very and I was very pleased to hear even without the policy in front of you, there's some really good, serious contributions made in the room on the 22nd, and I was really listening to all of those and taking them on board. Definitely, this has to be child centric, and in fact, I should have nearly said, although this can help those children for whom the EHCP process is long, it can help them before they get their EHCP, if that's exactly what they need. And I think that's right. Every child, every case has to be different. But that idea about, as well, it could be that if we can support the children early, either when they're in crisis or to stop that crisis, then when they have their EHCP program, it's much more realistic and relevant for them because they're there in a happier place. So I think there's all kinds of reasons why that child-centered bit has to be right. In law, we have to. We can't not. And it's not about reducing that money, but thank you for that. I'd also want to say I'm more than happy to undertake outside of the meeting and as immediately as I can with Lee, with Francis, with Evie as vice chair, just to make sure that they understand what's happening, what we're doing next, and allay any concerns and have a plan for when this comes back to scrutiny. Forgive me, through you, Chair, if you don't mind. Yes, indeed. The legal chairs, the legal questions did come from one of our independent members who I value massively. And I happened to speak to her after that on a different matter, anyway, ordinarily. And so the case law that was raised had already been looked at from our legal perspective and in something that I've seen, which unfortunately as a legal thing, we've got to keep them confidential, but it did explicitly answered issues around one of the case law questions to make sure that we knew what we had to do to not fall foul of that. So I felt very assured, and I recall the chair saying I had to be assured, and I felt assured in that regard by what came forward. Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Right, I think we're ready to move on to recommendations, which are to approve the adoption of. Oh, sorry, Diogo.
Just one, and it's on recommendations anyway. Just Councillor Shearer mentioned that the policy the review of the policy would also go to scrutiny, and that was worded in the recommendations. But I think there's an oversight because it doesn't mention scrutiny in the recommendation, so you may just want to cover that.
Yeah, I was going to read through and then suggest that. So thank you very much for. It's almost like we're thinking the same way. Let's not try and do that too often. So the recommendation before us is to approve the adoption of the Section 19 policy as Appendix 1. Note the Service Director Education will conduct a formal review of the impact of this policy in 3 to 6 months for consideration by Executive. Can we add the words and scrutiny? And then we're all happy. So proposer Councillor Heather Shearer, seconded by Councillor Richard Wilkins. Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. And that's clearly carried. Thank you. We are slightly ahead of time. Let's not make a habit of it though. So I'll give us a short break now with a reassembly time of midday. And have we got all the officers we need for item 10 to be at midday? We can. I can see James Gilchrist is hiding somewhere. There we go. And yeah, we've got just make sure we've got everybody from Brighton item 10 available at 12. Then please. Okay, meeting adjourned. Right, welcome back all. It's item 10 on our agenda next, and that is the endorsement of the Get Somerset Working Plan. And Councillor Mike Rigby is introducing this one.
Thank you, Bill. Some of us will have seen this before, Bill and I, on a number of occasions. So I think we could probably recite it, couldn't we, from memory? Should we have a competition?
Let's not have a test.
Let's not do that. This is the Get Somerset Working Plan, which is our strategic response to the government's white paper, Get Britain Working, and that requires that local authorities come up with a plan of how to try and, strangely enough, get people working that aren't currently working. We have something like 62,000 people in Somerset of working age that aren't currently in employment. Of those, almost 11,000 indicate that they want a job. So in these circumstances, they may be regarded as the low-hanging fruit. Very often it's disability and health issues that are the barrier to people getting back into work, and this strategy helps to address some of those. This document is fully in alignment with the Get Britain Working White Paper. It's in alignment with the council plan. There's some really good stuff in here, and I hope that we can endorse it here today. Thanks very much.
Thank you. You passing on to Chris, or is it to Paul, or is it to James? It's gone down the line like a rugby ball through the backs, out to the winger. James.
Thank you very much. So yeah, James Gilchrist, I'm the head of economic prosperity, and thanks for that introduction, Mike. Really helpful context. So, as Mike said, the Get Somerset Working Plan is our response to the government's call for action, local action on economic inactivity, and aligns with the white paper that was published last year, the Get Britain Working Plan. I should also say it aligns with and helps support the people priorities within the economic prosperity strategy for Somerset that was recently adopted by this executive in July as well. The Somerset plan is it's a 10-year plan, but it is to be kept under regular review and be updated, especially in the event of any significant changes, especially changes to funding arrangements or potential devolution changes. In the interest of time, I won't go into detail of the content of the Get Britain Working Plan, or indeed the Get Somerset Working Plan, which the exec have seen, but in short, the Somerset plan for now focuses on the first of the 6 key challenges that the Get Britain Working Paper plan highlights, namely the exclusion of too many people, as Mike has said, from the labour market, particularly those with health conditions, caring responsibilities, or lower skills. So future iterations of this plan will expand on the focus, and it is subject to change, as I've kind of said. It'll focus on the wider kind of systemic issues identified in the government's white paper, including youth skills and transitions, job quality, gendered barriers to progression, employer recruitment challenges, and regional disparities that we're seeing in labour market outcomes. Other key points to highlight, as set out within the paper, the plan has been co-produced and is co-owned by partners. Somerset Council are the accountable, so lead body for the plan, but the plan must also be approved by the ICB via their nominated representative and JCP regional leads ahead of its publication. And I'm pleased to report that we have now had essentially sign off from both those parties. So this is today is the kind of the final step in the authorisation. It's being overseen by the Work, Health and Skills Partnership that we set up, the inaugural meeting of which was in June, and pulled together the plan and the meeting again in October to review the next steps and essentially the action plan for how we take this forward. It is a local plan, although submitted to DWP, the Department for Work and Pensions. They will only comment on kind of any kind of significant concerns or where they think we've not met requirements. It's not a case of them having to approve the plan as such. We did get a bit of capacity funding of £100,000 to support the evidence-based development and the design, the delivery of this, and the development of this plan. But the implementation of it is not currently funded. It's worth making that point. Beyond the kind of the parallel or complementary Connect to Work programme that you may have heard of, there isn't additional government funding to support delivery of this over and above the kind of the current sort of business as usual activity that we're already performing within or providing within the service. So next steps, as mentioned, the Work, Health and Skills Partnership will be developing an action plan to determine how we can achieve some of the quick wins identified within the plan, within our existing resources. And we'll continue conversations as to how we can work towards developing that plan into a kind of a fuller version based on the full requirements of the Get Britain Working paper in due course. We do have some of the capacity funding left to help support some of these early actions, but funding for delivery will remain an issue. And separately, I suppose, in terms of that broader context around funding, we are doing what we can to progress the devolution agenda with government and seek the funding we need to progress this plan and our wider economic prosperity agenda. And the plan is submitted with a request for endorsement by executive today. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Anything to add, Paul?
I think just to say briefly that when the government launched the Get Britain Working white paper at the end of last calendar year, it did, in its language, undertake a number of trailblazers nationally for different parts of the agenda. They placed those trailblazers, I'm afraid, with the, as we often see, with the mayoral strategic authorities across the country, our urban areas. There is a kind of intent from government to use the learning of that trailblazer process to inform delivery across other themes in Get Britain Working. We saw an announcement, I think, at the Labour Party conference earlier this week about the youth guarantee, which is part of that. Ironically, near to our doorstep, West of England Combined Authority
was the trailblazer for Youth Guarantee, a rhetorical commitment to roll that out nationally. So I suppose we're being positive. We're seeing those trailblazers being used to roll out that initiative. So hopefully we will see additional armoury in addition to the Connect to Work programme over time to support delivery, but we're not in that place as yet.
Indeed, one of the signposts in the disappointing consequences of not being in a strategic mayoral authority, in spite of our best efforts yet, is particularly noteworthy. Can I just say, really am pleased to see in this paper the work of the employment hubs being included. Really value their contribution across the county. I went to visit the Highbridge one not that long ago and was really impressed by the work of the volunteers, bringing in local employers, working with a wide diversity of individuals not in employment, and it was really exemplary, the work that was going on there. So hugely pleased to see that involved here, and really pleased to see the work with the disabled people's hubs as well. The displaced people's hubs as well. It's important that those people who've got refugee status get into employability as quickly as possible so that they don't fall through the various traps in the system that we have. So really pleased and very much welcome this paper. Federica first.
Thank you, Chair. I find this paper really interesting. I do support it and what it's looking to do. I think for me, there were just some questions around what we define as caring for a family or home with those that are actually showing as inactive, as sometimes it's a choice to do that. It's not because that there are, I guess there's two sides of the coin, isn't there? There are those that choose to be at home to raise a family, or they have caring responsibilities. And then there's the flip side of the coin that many people know too well, probably I would say many females know too well, and in the fact that going back into the workplace and finding jobs that are available to them within school hours is what's difficult. So I think for me, it's about trying to, is there a difference in those numbers, or is that seeing that in its entirety versus choice versus actually what's available? As I'd be interested to know that. And if you don't have the answer now, I'm happy to have a written answer.
Thanks very much, Federica. Yeah, that is taken into consideration. So we, as Mike I think highlighted in the introduction, we've got something like 68,000 economically inactive in Somerset, of which we estimate about 11,000 are in essentially are interested in looking for work and able to try and work. There's obviously a big chunk of that inactive cohort that fundamentally, like you say, for all sorts of reasons, my wife included at the moment, looking after our young son, wouldn't be choose to be in work, but at some point in the future will want to return to work.
My second question then is, what are we doing as a council in order to look to improve ourselves as an organisation, so that people who cannot work full time or work different hours? I know previously in the past, I want to say when we were a district council, we did something getting women back into the workplace and giving different jobs that are available. What are we looking to do for our workforce to make us more appealing? And I know that we do lots of flexible working, but it would be interesting to see, are we trailblazing what we're basically saying needs to happen in this policy?
I think Alan's going to take this one. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Chair. It's an interesting question, and we raised this during the development of this particular initiative to make sure that we were part of the proposals as well. So kind of setting that best case and making sure that we were living up to the commitments as part of this. Members will know that the people strategy was part of the core development of the transformation plan. That's not just about the transformation, but that's also about achieving really the employer of choice and making sure that we're able to achieve all of those different aspects. And that includes flexible working, that includes different ways of working, and also trying to appeal to a wide range of members of the community to effectively be able to work for the organisation and fulfilling some of those key roles. So we've taken quite a lot out of this paper and ensured that it's reflected within the people strategy, so that again we can see the actions and the commitments that we're asking others to make and asking the general business community to make as part of this paper are also reflected into our people strategy to provide that maximum flexibility to appeal to a wide range of people to fulfil the for the variety of tasks really that we have to fill as a council. Thank you, Chair.
Richard.
Yeah, no, it's a very impressive paper. My question is, given that Somerset is now such an exciting place for people to come to work, we've got HPC being the largest building site in Western Europe. We've got Agratas coming on tap very shortly. It gives us huge opportunities, but it also could bring concerns that we'll be bringing in a lot more workers into Somerset. How are we looking so that we can balance it out and bring some of these people in Somerset to work in those areas, especially in these new employment areas?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Richard. I think Agratas did make some quite interesting suggestions in some of our meetings. I don't know whether we can refer to them yet in public or not.
Thank you for the question. I think you highlight what's essentially one of the fundamental challenges and opportunities, or challenge off the back of an opportunities that we've got within Somerset, as highlighted within our prosperity strategy, which is to exploit the significant growth opportunities that we've got. We need to make sure we've got a workforce fit for the future. We also know that we are close to functional unemployment essentially within Somerset. So the workers, those jobs have to be filled by someone. So the reality is that there's going to be an element of inward migration to do that, but we also want to make sure we maximise the impact for local people. And this sort of work and the Connect to Work programme is one of the means with which we can try and do that, by essentially tackling that cohort of individuals who are currently outside of the labour market, but could benefit from being part of it.
Just to kind of supplement that with a bit relating to the Agratas agenda. We're working very closely with our further education colleges and of course Agratas to really push that agenda of local employment for local people as far as we can. There's a lot of work going on to be ready to provide local skills programs to help back that agenda, but also a focus on backfill. So it's I think very likely, it's probably inevitable that Agratas will pull through people from existing employers, creating churn in the labour market. If we can, perhaps those might be less high quality jobs, to use that phrase. If we can equip people and encourage them to take up the backfill opportunities, everyone benefits as a result. So it's a twin focus effectively in that case, supporting the mobilisation, Agratas, and also maximising the opportunities for backfill.
Indeed, and it's where the improving offer from University Colleges Somerset and the hopefully imminent arrival of degree awarding powers will give a lot of our local residents more opportunities, where moving out of the county has been the only option for some, and that's been a barrier to social mobility as well for those that can't leave the area because of their other responsibilities. And it's great to see when you go to the graduation programmes that the college see. It's great to see so many local people taking advantage of those opportunities. Sarah.
Yes, I too welcome this plan and the way it reflects, I think, government thinking as well. I think it's really important that we are stepping in line with where hopefully some money will follow. We'd like that too. I'm particularly concerned about youth unemployment, because I think I'm one of the generation that thinks working is a habit that you acquire quite early in life, and then you think I must be working. And throughout the time I brought up my children, I went back to work each time to the same job, admittedly, but I understand it is extremely difficult when you've been out of the workplace to get those opportunities. I was very interested to meet yesterday at the opening of the Wellington Community Hub workers who work for the council, who run the employment hub, talking to them across these are workers who work across the west of the county. They were telling me what they do, how the people come in. They may want to improve their working prospects, they may not have a job, and they will support them through the process of making applications, getting the confidence to do that. And I thought that was really useful. That Wellington hub is really exciting, and I know Bill was there yesterday as well. In adult social care, we have apprenticeships, which help people get into work, into the field we're in. We also have adult social care practitioners who come forward and then gradually work towards getting a social work qualification if that's what they want. And we also have a back to work for social workers, assistance for those who've been out of work for some time, possibly bringing up a family or other reasons and want to come back into social work. So we are doing what we can, I think, as a council, but there is always more to be done. And I'm just saying, going back to the young people, I know my 3 children that work out of this county, that the opportunities that they would want don't exist at the moment within the county, partly because of the nature of the work some of them do. But I was a bit sort of distressed actually by the public health, our public health lady saying at the discussion we had that we're a bit of an outlier with a number of people between 16 and 25 who are out of work. So we just need to think about those employment opportunities for those. And I think that means talking to employers, doesn't it, about more apprenticeships, more opportunities for people who may not have fantastic qualifications, but who actually can offer something in the workplace and for whom work needs to become a habit. Do you have any specific things to say about that?
I know Councillor Shearer does, but yeah, Bob, pass it on to James and Paul first.
Thank you for the question. Yes, and you're right. I mean, youth unemployment is one of those, they're a big chunk of that cohort of economically inactive people. And our team does a number of different, has a number of different areas of work that sort of looking to kind of tackle that. And we are doing more to engage strategically with employers, as you say, some of our major employers with whom we need to kind of get on board with that agenda, including the Connect to Work plan. There are also other initiatives the council runs, such as things like the Education Business Partnership, where we bring together those major employers and our educational institutions, because, as you say, some of those jobs maybe don't exist, but some of them do, and people just don't necessarily know that they exist. What exciting opportunities we do have within Somerset. So I think it's breaking down those kind of myths to some extent as well is an important part of that.
I'd just say as well that I think one of the reasons for government requiring local areas to develop these plans and asking local authorities to kind of hold the ring in their development is because of the recognition that we know our employers well. And we can make those relationships work rather than a nationally delivered programme that would be more distant from the kind of employer links that are instrumental to it, as James has said.
Thank you, and Heather.
Sorry, thank you. A couple of reasons to put my hand up. I mean, partly was that thank you for being so concerned about young people and finding jobs for young people. And I'm always impressed by the work that goes on across the council about, you know, through colleges, but also internships and so on. I think one of the things I just wanted to mention on that was I think we must not lose sight of, and I know my colleagues around the table are very keen on the social value element of contracts that we put forward to make sure that we take every opportunity there for young people and adults. In that regard, I think that's another debate we have to have sometime on social value. I think also just to know that there's a lot of ambition within children's services for our young people to try and map those pathways through to enable young people to get into jobs. But that's, you know, there are very few officers doing that for quite a lot of our children. So it's a really key thing that we don't want to lose sight of, the good work that's happening. I put my hand up originally also, though, to say that I remember looking at this early variations of this paper and indeed this one, and I'm thinking, oh, how do we kind of Venn diagram overlay things like, it'd be very tempting to obviously you'd want to try to encourage those people who want to work to find work. But I would hate there to be a great overlap between people who want to work and people who live in our very rural areas, for whom getting to work is incredibly hard. So I was just wondering whether any of that's come out in the analysis. And the other one was from the original paperwork that we saw when this first was being mooted. Women are most often actually disadvantaged in this way, either because they're caring, but I think also even the numbers of women as opposed to men who are in a long-term health issue. So I think, again, it's something when you come to develop your plans more fully, I'm thinking about that, you know, that positive emphasis towards supporting women. But that the conflict between, I'm saying the tension, let's say, between the beautiful rural area that we have and where people find themselves and their ability to get to work is something that would keep me awake at night. And I guess we'd have to factor into our local plan. Every meeting I have to get the local plan in somehow, but our local plan must reflect, I'm sure, and will reflect all these concerns around helping our people into work.
It's going to be a difficult local plan to pick up because of the size of it. I can see already. James, Paul, anything to add on those points?
To agree with the points you've highlighted, really, that we know those that some people face all sorts of barriers for all sorts of different reasons. It's not necessarily a case of just the employer not making necessary provisions for people. One of the key truth is we need to know more about that. One of the key quick wins within the plans you'll see is kind of a further development of our evidence base using the capacity funding we've got left available. Because what at the moment we've got is quite a broad brush kind of view of the problems and the challenges. We need to dive deeper into those as part of the next steps.
Thank you. Any other members? Dawn.
Thank you. As a woman and a proud woman, I always champion the women's concerns, and I share what Fed said as well, and Sarah, in relation to women, making sure that the caring duties are separated between caring for elderly and caring for children, because as much as they have the same concerns returning to work, there are often other struggles. Which relates also to my other point, which is menopause is never raised, which is a real concern for women returning to the workplace or even having to leave the workplace or struggling in the workplace. There's another sector that I don't see much mention of, and that's the visitor sector. And we've spoken about this before in other committees, where people just use Somerset as a drive-through to get to Somerset, to Cornwall and to Devon. And if we could get people to stop here, it would be a really good opportunity for us to get money in. But also, what's interesting about the visitor sector is that there's a seasonality element, there's a flexibility element, which would suit women returning to the workplace, as well as the elderly. And we're looking at people who are of retirement age, and if we could offer more opportunities for the elderly to stay in work or choose to do something, it would have an impact on public health. It would have an impact on all sorts of other aspects. So I think the visitor economy is really important. Menopause is really important to be an element of the plan. And then, of course, the elderly. And that could be in relation to phasing out working or phasing in working for the elderly. But another sector that's not mentioned, although we talk about rural communities, is the agricultural sector. It's just there's not enough emphasis when we're one of the largest agricultural counties. We talk about getting people in from rural areas to the workplace, but what about work opportunities in the rural communities? Agricultural colleges, all of those kinds of elements, which just doesn't seem to be any, obvious mention in the report. But I understand that this is overview, and I know that there'll be detail at another stage, but those would be great if they could be somehow made reference to. Thank you.
Four really good points, which I'm sure we'll take away, and we'll be in the more detailed elements of that. Just want to highlight how great it is to see Cannington College branding come back under the University College Somerset, because Cannington was renowned as an agricultural and horticultural college. Those colleges are still, those courses still exist, but they were subsumed under the Bridgewater College identity for many years. And it's good to see that branding coming back there. And on the Vista economy, it's particularly great to see Screens Somerset bring that spotlight onto our county, which is having a direct impact on the Vista economy as well. So there are initiatives going on that aren't reflected in the paper that's in front of it because it's so high level. But yeah, your points are really well made.
And Bill, just another reference is that being on the outside body for Visit Somerset, none of us have ever been invited in the past 3 years to attend, and it's a frustration because there doesn't seem to be much of a connection.
Visit Somerset and member representation. So every member who's listed on an outside body will have received an email from Claire Dickin in Dem Services and asking you to respond. So we know that the associate lead member, David Wone, attends those meetings. I understand there's no requirement for us to put any other members forward, but would really appreciate it if you and others who are listed on the outside bodies list could actually respond to that survey, because we have got a huge amount of work as those responses are coming in to actually work out where we do need outside bodies listed and where we don't. Thank you for that.
Thanks. And Lucy.
Hi, thank you, Chair. So this is promising. Obviously, we want to see people employed. We want employment to go up. We want to see people living meaningful lives and not being cast off. For example, if they have a disability, there is still something that they can offer. I've got a couple of questions though. First, I wanted to know how this linked. A couple of months ago, we had I think it was the economic development strategy come forward, and I wondered whether these two were being linked together because they seem to be, or is this from that and I've missed that in the report? And secondly, I wanted to know just why it hadn't gone to a scrutiny committee, because it states that, but it has had scrutiny sign off, and I wondered whether it would be coming forward as the plan progresses to scrutiny committees so that members outside of the executive have an opportunity to feed back on it.
Okay, James, I'm sure you can make the links between the two papers that you've had and in writing.
Probably whizzed over it pretty quickly at the start, but a key context is that this is part of the kind of the delivery of the people priorities within the economic prosperity strategy the executive adopted just a couple of months ago, and so very much linked to it and part of its kind of delivery.
I'll pick up the point about scrutiny, which is an interesting comment. I think this is a living plan, as we've described, and James has talked about the need to kind of deepen the detail of the plan. We're hopeful, expectant that other strands of delivery from DWP and other parts of government will come into our kind of scope to be delivering against. I think engagement with scrutiny is something we should pick up, acknowledge that. And I think we can do that on the basis of experience of delivering the plan and seeking, I think particularly it would be helpful to have advice about those barriers and how we break them down at the local level, because we can have finely worded strategies and great Somerset-wide ideas of how they're delivered, but the barriers often exist at the local level. So having insight about that and how we tackle them would be extremely helpful, and I think a good place for a scrutiny conversation as well. So thank you for the points, understood.
Yeah, it's just a quick one because I think that people, I'm not speaking for on behalf of anybody, but the executive is the executive, but scrutiny belongs to members, and our members have a huge breadth of knowledge, experience and understanding. So it'd be really, really good to be able to have that feed in from that wider group of 110 of us. You know, I know that we can attend executive meetings, but scrutiny is a really good venue for people to be able to offer their ideas and thoughts. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think we've mentioned scrutiny on every single agenda item, so I'm hoping it's getting the profile that we'd like it to have. But yeah, thank you. Your points are well made and well taken. I'm not seeing any other members wishing to speak, so if we move to the recommendations. That we adopt and the proposed Get Somerset Working Plan 25 attached as Appendix A and delegate to the Service Director and consultation with the lead member the authority to make any required minor amendments, oversee design and publication of the Get Somerset Working Plan. Councillor Rigby, I'm sure you want to propose this.
I would love to.
Okay, and Councillor Frederica Smith-Roberts is seconding. Those in favour? Those against? First of all, thank you, James and Paul, for your hard work on this, and please relay it to your teams. I also just want to highlight that I think that there's a big piece around partnership working here that I think is also really important. And when we set out, our ambitions for Somerset Council, and this, has impact and input from employers, from health, from our colleges, also our partners in Job Centre Plus and the DWP as well. This has got to be delivered as a whole public sector and all working together with the private sector to be able to get Somerset working. So really pleased to see this come forward. Thank you.
Might jump in very, very quickly. Thank you for your comments, and we'll take that back to the team. Mel Roberts would have been here because she's done a lot of the hard work. Mel is getting married.
Please do pass on our congratulations. I think Councillor Rigby is offering a love heart, which he has appeared to have come into executive today with, which I'm slightly nervous about. But yeah, please pass on our good wishes. And we have had the presentation from Mel, I think, on Councillor Rigby. I think it's 4 occasions now. So it was almost refreshing to have somebody, and it's great. So I hope she has a great honeymoon as well.
4 presentations and a wedding. It's the theme there. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Now we move on to item 11, which is the Taunton Strategic Flood Alleviation and Improvement Scheme, left bank of the River Tone flood defences. And as if by magic, Councillor Graham Oakes has appeared like Big Brother in the room. So the thing that I've learned with this is the left bank is when you're looking at the way the river flows, which is something that I didn't know until I read this paper. So, Councillor Graham Oakes.
Thank you very much, Chair. I must admit, whenever people talk about the left bank, I always think of Paris. But in this occasion, we're talking about Taunton, and Anna's going to give the report in a second and walk you through it. But this is a very important piece of work that needs to be carried out. And the important element of this is that a large number of properties, some key properties, but lots of other properties as well, will be safeguarded going forward. And the other key point is that the funding largely is coming from, isn't coming from the council taxpayer. However, what I would say is that whilst this report is coming to you today, I think we're going to have to accept that going forward, because of climate change, there's going to have to be more of this sort of thing. We need to keep our homes safe. And I'm hoping that this scheme will be implemented and we will be in a position where people will never really realise the risks that their properties were under when we've had some close shaves in the past, but when the scheme will keep those properties safe. Anyway, I think we'll hand you over to Anna, who's done all the work.
Thanks very much, Graham. And yeah, and absolutely, indeed, I remember the left bank of Taunton flooding on more than one occasion growing up, and we do recognise that this is a strategic issue.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Oakes, and good afternoon, members. So the report before you today covers the specific project of replacement and repair of defences along the left bank of the River Trone, stretching from Clarence Street down to the former Pound stretcher site at Town Bridge. Somerset Council and the former Taunton Deane Borough Council and Somerset West and Taunton Council with the Environment Agency have been working in partnership for a number of years to identify strategic flood solutions to provide protection to Taunton, protection to existing buildings, infrastructure, highways, but also linking to our regeneration sites, particularly in this instance, Wood Street, Greenfield Terrace and Firepool. The previous Somerset West and Taunton Council in 2020 endorsed the long-term strategic approach set out in the strategic flood alleviation and improvement schemes and the delivery of this project through to the end of construction and 6 million capital funding dedicated to the project. We signed a collaborative agreement with the Environment Agency in 2022, and this project, as Councillor Oakes mentions, provides approximately 225 properties with flood relief and reduced flood risk to a further 508. It protects key transport routes like Staple Grove Road, Station Road, and access to the railway station, providing access as well to essential convenience stores, schools, and fuel stations. There is reduced flood risk, as mentioned, to key infrastructure and services, which includes BT Exchange, Northtown Primary School, and Dean House, which incorporates the police station probation service, Taunton Pool, the Town Council, Taunton Town Council, and sheltered housing in the area. Existing businesses are protected through this scheme, and also the Taunton Town Centre regeneration sites of Firepool, Greenbrook Terrace and Wood Street also benefit. We've been progressing the detailed design, consents and permissions phase, which also includes the production of full construction documentation. That is now nearing completion, which is why we're coming back to executive to seek reconfirmation of commitment to the scheme and delegating to the Service Director for Economic Development, Skills and Climate, Paul, the ability to sign the collaborative agreement and sign any additional funding applications. Subject to approval of flood defence granting aid, which we will be submitting later this year, the project is fully funded through a combination of grants and levies, including Community Infrastructure Levy, the Department for Education grant and flood defence granting aid. And we currently have a cost price of between 4.2 and 5.6 million to implement the scheme. We currently have secured £6.5 million funding, and subject to successful flood defence granting aid 7.31. The reason for those range of figures is that our current costings are based on outline design with risk uplift. We have a very comprehensive risk register, so we are accounting for knowns and unknowns in that. Phase 2 is nearing completion. We've had a multi-agency team working on that. Somerset Council officers, the Environment Agency, also experts in design, ecology, and working with the service providers in the area. The Taunton Town Centre to deliver a flood scheme is a very constrained site with significant constraints. Hence why we've been doing a lot of work around investigations and surveys and assessments to de-risk the construction phase of the project. We've also been engaging with third-party landowners, because in a town centre location, a lot of the flood defences will appear adjacent to or on third-party land. So the former Pound Stretch site, BT Exchange, residential properties at Clarence Street, and open space, which is owned by Taunton Town Council. We've also delivered some engagement. We have a web page. We also have had an informal public consultation and engagement, and also done some work which was great fun with Taunton Town Primary School, which is very much around interactiveness with flood houses and things in rivers. Wonderful board games have been created by Somerset Rivers Authority, which we also trialled with the school. That is a very whistle-stop tour. I'm very happy to take questions. There's a lot more detail in the report around risks, around liabilities, also around benefits, cost benefits to our residents, but also to the council, and reduction in risk to our local businesses and residents.
Thank you so much. And Mike, do you want to add?
Thank you very much. This is really good news, this project. It's been some years in the making. It's very much needed. We'll all have seen photographs from, I think, 1960, when much of the centre of Taunton was underwater. And this kind of project will help to make sure that that sort of thing doesn't happen again. Very pleased, obviously, that it's externally funded. I thought I'd also just share with you that under the Twinning Association's new plan, it will become known as Rive Gauche instead of Left Bank. Under the same plan, the leader of the council is renamed Guillaume Revon, or Dreamy Bill, and the chief executive becomes Duncan Charcuterie. So I'll probably stop at that point, but great project. Thank you very much.
Thank you for stopping. Are there any other comments from colleagues? Councillor Federica Smith-Roberts.
I can't match Mike's humour, but I certainly can match that. I'm in support of this scheme for what it does, both to protect homes, but also like strategically important sites, both that we own, such as Dean House, because I know that we've called it Taunton Town Council, but that is our asset here at Somerset Council, and obviously the work that we're doing for Firepool. To see that it's externally funded is a real positive. I just wanted to check my knowledge, Anne, with you, is when you look at the map, there's the little gap in between the two red lines. Is that because work has been done as part of the building of the flats there, or that is just already had its work done?
You're exactly right. So Riverine Court, when that development came through planning, the Environment Agency pushed for them to increase the flood protection in that area. So Riverine Court isn't included in this project because it has delivered. And the same with Tangier Way Bridge as well. When that was designed, it was designed to replace the existing flood defences that arc around the footpath. So both that bridge and Riverine Court provide a higher level of flood defence protection. Yeah.
Councillor Sarah Wakefield.
Yeah, just to say as well, I also welcome this, and I think it's as has been said, it's been long awaited that it should happen. I recall we're discussing this at Somerset West and Taunton, some of these flood defence ideas, and people said, why can't they just get the water to run through Taunton quicker and then let it out on the levels? Well, that's the point. It's a pinch point, and it is going to cause problems in the town if we don't have defences. We would love to get it through Taunton quicker, maybe stop some of it coming down into Taunton as quickly. And those are other things which we need to do further upstream. But you know, this will be really welcome for people in town and the homes and businesses there. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and it is part of a wider picture of all the flood amelioration actions that have taken place through Somerset Rivers Authority. Really pleased to see the King's Sedgemoor Drain works nearing completion, and you know, there is also the case of slowing the flow, which is really important that we manage the waterways in Somerset. We have a unique and special geography here, of which this is a small part. I'm not seeing any other members of the executive, so other members, Diogo.
Thank you, Chair. I'll declare an interest, but I'm not a member of the committee, so I won't. But as a person with an interest in this flood defences going ahead because of a family business on Bridge Street and having excruciating high insurance costs because of the flood risk. I know that affects not just obviously our family businesses, but businesses across that area. And so my one question is really around the practicality of it. So I can let people know is how do you, when this is done, how are insurance companies made aware of the works that are put in so that our insurance premiums can decrease, not just ours, but all businesses that may be affected?
Anne, are you able to enlighten us?
Partly, and I might have to come back to you, but in terms of national data sets around flood defences, they will be updated to reflect these defences when they are in place. So the insurance companies that rely on that data and look on that mapping data will then be able to see the areas that are protected from these defences. So those layers on a national data set, which is managed by the Environment Agency, will be updated.
Indeed, and it's getting the insurance companies to accept is sometimes the issue. I know, as you know, as you all know, my division is quite susceptible to rising waters, unfortunately. Okay, not seeing anybody else indicating, so we'll go on to our recommendations, which is to reaffirm the commitment to the delivery of the flood scheme for the left bank of the River Tone, noting the intention for the scheme to be fully externally funded. Delegate to the Service Director for Economic Development, Skills and Climate, in consultation with the lead member for signing off the collaborative agreement for the construction of phase TTC5 in consultation with the head of legal. And to delegate to the Service Director in consultation with the lead member and the Section 151 officer the signing of the Flood Defence Grant in Aid application to DEFRA. Those are the recommendations before us. Do I have a proposer in the room, please? Councillor Mike Rigby, seconded by Federica Smith-Roberts. All those in favour, please. All those against? And I'm sure, Graham, you were itching to put your hand up, weren't you? Yeah, unfortunately you can't because you're not in the room. That is clearly carried. Thank you so much, Anne, for all your hard work. And I really do appreciate all the efforts that go behind this and the impact this has on the residents and businesses that will be in that area, and of course the council assets. The flooding of Taunton Pool would be an interesting one to deal with, wouldn't it? Thank you very much. And so we move on to item 12 on our agenda, which is the revocation. Yeah, not sure that's a word I've ever said out loud. Of air quality management areas, and Councillor Federica Smith-Roberts is introducing this.
Thank you, Chair. So bringing forward today, asking us to remove the following air quality management areas that sit 2 areas within or near Taunton, so Eastreach and Henlade, because they have over the past 3 years now met the good air quality monitoring compared to what they were previously. And then Yeovil has reached the requirements for 2 years. So there's a request so that today we make a decision that should it meet it in for its third year, that will also then be revoked. So these air quality management areas have been in place for some time, and then for multiple reasons, which I'll ask Richard to just give some more detail of, because I know Councillor Rigby has a question because he wants to know what may have caused these declines, but he's now left the room, as to as to the fact that actually air quality in these areas are getting better, and so we therefore do not need to monitor them anymore. But I'll hand over to Richard for some further information.
Thank you, Councillor Smith-Roberts. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. Just to give a brief background in terms of the air quality and the reasons why we do what we do. So under the Environment Act 1995, the council is required to monitor the air in its district for sensitive pollutants and periodically review and assess this air quality and compare it against legally binding health-based air quality standards, which are referred to as air quality objectives. Where air pollution concentrations exceed the air quality objective, the council is required to designate that locality as an air quality management area. This process has been ongoing for over 20 years and resulted in previous declaration of 2 air quality management areas within Taunton, East Reach and Henlade, and for the whole of the town of Yeovil due to breaches, exceedances of the air quality objective, their specific localities. Following declaration of air quality management areas, the council is required to produce an air quality action plan setting out the measures to reduce polluting emissions and to subsequently improve air quality within our air quality management areas in the wider Somerset area. The success of the measures with previous plans combined with national actions to improve air quality, for example, the replacement of older, more polluting vehicles nationally with newer, less polluting ones, has now resulted in air pollution concentrations improving, such that they've fallen below the air quality objectives of the air quality management areas. Local air quality management is overseen by the Government's Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, DEFRA, and the Council submits an annual status report detailing progress within the measures within the Air Quality Action Plan, along with latest monitoring data. Where air quality monitoring data shows continued compliance, DEFRA require these air quality management areas complying with the objectives to be revoked. And this was confirmed by DEFRA in response to the Council's annual status report last year. The Council's therefore responded to DEFRA instruction in revoking these air quality management areas. Out of the Somerset Council's 3 air quality management areas, it is proposed to fully revoke the 2, Henlade and East Reach. The air quality management area for Yeovil has been compliant for the last 2 years, and based on current trends, monitoring data for 25 is likely to show further compliance with the air quality objective. In line with national guidance, air quality management areas should be revoked where compliance is achieved for a minimum of 3 consecutive years. So therefore, it's proposed to revoke the air quality management area for Yeovil in 2026, once the monitoring data for 2025 is known. Improvements in air quality will result in a public health benefit to both residents and visitors within the air quality management areas in the wider Somerset area, who will be breathing air of lower pollution concentrations than in the past. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Richard. Dave, you're looming on the big screens behind us. Did you have anything to add?
Yeah, just to say that this is a really positive bit of work that that obviously Richard's brought forward, and I think that revoking these areas that have been in place for quite a long time is a positive positive step. It shows the decline in air pollution, and I think it should be something that we're pleased to do. So yeah, that's all I'll say at the moment. Thanks.
Thanks. And Richard.
Yeah, I mean, on the face of this is fantastic news. Getting the air quality is really important. I noticed in your graphs that you have an AQ objective line on the graphs, but you don't have another line that I'd like to see on there, where we sort of have a desire line, for instance, so that the places that have been mentioned could reach the sort of air quality of, for instance, in my area of Curry Rival and Langport, which has very lovely air. So I was wondering whether there was a desire line for the nitrogen dioxide contamination, for instance.
That's an interesting question. The objective is based on legally binding levels that are set in legislation. So those are the levels that we have to monitor to ensure that the concentrations are below those levels, hence why the air quality management areas were put in place in the first place. I think there probably, it's difficult to say whether there's desired concentration that we would like to get to, but I think the overall response would be that whilst we are revoking the air quality management areas, it doesn't mean that the work to improve air quality stops. We will continue to monitor the air pollution within the county, and we will work to ensure that we continue to maintain that good air quality.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say on behalf of the residents of Henlade that although they'll be pleased to know that the air quality is improved, they will know that this doesn't help to get a bypass or anything done about the traffic that still piles up in that area of Henlade as it comes in towards Taunton. And certainly Riverston Parish Council will be a little concerned to hear this. I mean, as I say, it's a good news story if air quality is improved, but we desperately still need a bypass for Henlade, the traffic. And I know Richard's nodding, I know we do, but, and if it was just about, air quality was one of the things that helped us with our campaign on that. But yeah, you know, I'm sure that sitting in traffic isn't great for anybody, but if the measurements are above the levels, then yeah, I have to accept that.
Okay, no other comments? Any comments from, Diogo?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, really positive document. My only question really is, I'm assuming that the Henlade and Eastreach ones, that you've got the air monitors or something there that's monitoring it. The Yeovil one is more of a whole Yeovil town area. Do individual monitors within that Yeovil area show like a difference where some of the air quality is better than other areas? So are you doing like on average the air quality in Yeovil is down, or are there still parts of Yeovil where actually probably should or could be managed or need to be managed? I'm just wondering because that's not clear in the report, not that I could see.
There is a fascinating report if you link off it, which gives all the locations. Which if you're a real anorak, you might like to have a look at later, because I found it's one of those sort of things you find a little bit fascinating once you get into it. Richard.
Yeah, we, as I say, we produce an air quality strategy, well, summary review every year of the data that we have. For Yeovil, we have a number of monitoring locations. The reason why we are holding fire with revoking the air quality management area for Yeovil until next year is because one of those locations has previously been in exceedance of the air quality objective. We now have data to show for the last 2 years and hopefully for this year as well that one particular location is now below the air quality objective. But for all the other sites that we monitor, they are all below the air quality objective. It's just this one site, tricky site, that has been causing us a few problems for Yeovil. But looking at the data and the trends, we are hopeful that we will achieve compliance for 3 years based on that one site as well.
Yeah, thank you. It's linked off your ModGov on. It's called Annual Status Report. If you want to have a look at all the pieces of data that are there, it is a good news story, but it's just one of those situations of we fully appreciate that it's not where it doesn't imply perfection, not being in this state. Dave, did you want to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say it's important to point out that all the work that's done is done in accordance with technical documents published by DEFRA, and then the reports that we produce, the monitoring that we do is submitted to DEFRA for their review and audit before any decisions are made. So list revocation will be based on data that has been sent to DEFRA, and their consultants and their experts have reviewed what we've done and have obviously given us the green light that we've done it correctly.
That's really reassuring. Thank you. Okay, not seeing anybody else who wishes to speak. So we have recommendations before us to approve the removal or revocation of the following air quality management areas under the provisions of the Environment Act 95 of Eastreach, Henlade, and then Yeovil to be revoked in 26, subject to the data in 25 showing continued compliance. The executive to delegate authorities to the head of regulatory services to carry out all necessary steps to execute the removal of the following AQMAs. Eastreach, Henlade and Yeovil, and the executive to delegate to the head of legal services to enter into and execute any documents necessary to revoke the air quality management areas. Do I see a proposer for that, please? Councillor Rigby, seconded Councillor Federica Smith-Roberts. Those in favour, please. Those against. Richard, thank you so much for a fascinating read on that report and all your hard work that goes into preparing these reports for DEFRA and all the monitoring that you do to help keep our residents safe. It is very much appreciated. Okay, thanks to all the team that are involved in this. Okay, I think we're done. We are done. So it remains for me to thank everybody who's given reports, asked questions and contributed to today's meeting. Our next meeting is, remember, the 5th of November. It is on Wednesday, the 5th of November in the Luttrell Room at County Hall. That is assuming we don't have to hop over to Frome at some point to talk about Saxon Vale at some point in that period as well. Who knows what might come our way. Thanks ever so much and wish you a lovely rest of the day.